Proud, I'm your party leader. Mulionekana pale mkipigwa picha. Mumekasirika because you have been on the side of the Kenyan people over this high taxation.
Wale wa Azimio maseneta wakitoka kama wenzao wale National Assembly waende, tunaambia shetani ashindwe, lakini hii bill ya affordable housing itapita asubuhi na mapema.
Sisi tumekubaliana kama senators wa Kenya Kwanza, hiyo bill ya affordable housing ikifika tu kwa Senate, ikisomwa tunamwambia bwana speaker put the question. Mambo ya ngengenge tunawacha.
Kama nyinyi mandako mnapigia debe Raila Odinga apate kitu na ni mzee miaka 80, mbona kuna watu wanapinga kazi ya vijana ya miaka yao ni kidogo?
Just give us 2 hours, tutatumia 159, tumemaliza mambo ya affordable housing.
Mimi nimeongea na seneta wangu tumekubaliana asipitishe. Hao wengine waache kufanya ile cosmetic. Ni cosmetic hiyo.
Tutapitisha hiyo affordable housing bill, alafu wakuje wajenge nyumba hapa Kurugum, wajenge hapa Kaiboi, wajenge hapa Jepterwai na wajenge Nandi mzima.
Sisi ambao tumechaguliwa kama maseneta ndani ya ODM, ndani ya Azimio, we are not the problem with devolution.
Tuko na shida kubwa sana kupitisha huu mswada wa nyumba kwa sababu tumeona kwamba utaathiri pakubwa majukumu ya serikali zetu za county kuhusiana na swala hilo.
Kila mtu aende aongee na seneta wake. Wakikataa kuongea na seneta wao, wasiblame nini? Let them not blame anybody.
Tukiangalia katika mfumo wa kiserikali sasa, ardhi zote ambazo ziko katika county ni mali ya county. Hakuna ardhi ambayo ni mali ya serikali kuu.
Tell Waiguru to speak to her senator. Waache kutusumbua kukuja huko Senate kulialia, waongee na senators wao wa UDA, senators wa Kenya Kwanza ndio waliangusha ugatuzi.
Number 1, the senator, you're there to protect devolution. Na wewe kama unaenda kupiga kura devolution inyanyaswe hata wale watu wa huko, next time they should just let them go because they do not have the interest of the people at heart.
Walimu wapate nafasi wachengewe mashule, ili maneno ya housing yaanzie kwa mashule, ili walimu wapate kuishi mashule pale kuliko waende kwa senda ambayo wanapatiwa pombe kiolela.
Hii pombe karibu tuangaishe. Vijana walikuwa wanakunywa, wanalala kwa mtaro. Ameoa juzi bibi yako kwa kitanda, yeye analala chini ya kitanda. Sasa hiyo ni bomba gani?
We are led by 2 great leaders who are not ashamed of the gospel. So if the church was to feel safe within a government, this is the government to approach for your issues.
Hii Kenya hii imeharibika kwa sababu wananchi walikuwa wanakunywa pombe na viongozi wanakunywa pombe. So hakuna mtu ya kuangalia, kila mtu ni mle. Viongozi ni walevi, raia ni walevi.
There is no room or space or opportunity for this administration not to deal with corruption family decisively and conclusively.
Kupigana na ufisadi lazima mtu afunge mkanda sawa sawa, awe tayari kupigana na ufisadi. Manake ufisadi ni kitu ambacho kinapigana.
If anybody comes to you and says the president has said this, or I am a cousin or a brother or a relative of the president and I want this or the other, please don't believe them.
Ufisadi ni lazima umalizwe, na kumalizwa inatakana kuwa na political goodwill.
I am very confident that Kenya is going to be a greater country than we have ever imagined.
Uchumi sasa imefufuka. Ile dola inaboromoka. Nataka nishukuru sana kwa sababu ya ukweli tunaona bila uchumi inakuja.
We are now beginning to see the country back on its track. And I want to tell you, in the next 1 or 2 years, we shall disapprove wale walikuwa wanasema hawezi kufanya chochote.
Tuna support Raila Odinga akuwe chairman wa Africa Union Commission. Aende pale Ethiopia, awe anakaa hapo, aangalie maneno yote.
Tumeunga Raila Odinga with all our heads, our legs, our hands. Tunasukuma yeye aende AU huko.
Tumeamua kauli moja kama Mkenya wetu, mzee wetu ambaye is overqualified
ametafuta kazi hiyo, sisi kama serikali, sisi kama Wakenya tuna jukumu moja ya kumsaidia huyo mzee apate hiyo kazi.
Na hiyo kazi tutamuunga mkono kikamilifu kwa sababu si yake, ni ya Kenya. And is going to be Kenya's candidate, and we shall support him unequivocally and unconditionally to go and become the chairman of the African Union.
Nyinyi ni watu wa maajabu sana. Yaani mnashindana na mtu amewapinga, anaomba kazi, tayari mko mbele kuombea yeye kazi kule ng'ambo. Na wengine juzi walikuwa napinga hii nafasi, mnatafutia vijana kuomba kazi kule nje. Sasa mkipatia huyu Raila, si watu watajua kumbe kuna kazi huko nje, hata Wakenya waende nje. Walikuwa wanataka kupinga, sasa waruhusu watoto wetu waende nje wafanye kazi, tukianzia Raila.
The soapbox there, of course, just giving us a feel and flavor of what happened last week. And we want just to turn the crack on that particular issue right now as we continue. Very interesting editorial cartoon that we have as well. Baba Tosha, we can see also Honorable Musalia Mudavadi holding close to his chest this particular picture of Raila Odinga, Baba for AU. If my bad director may just pick it up so that we may discuss it with our panelists. Just put it in full so that we can see it there. That is Baba for AU Secretariat. You've seen it. Also, you've seen him in Namibia trying to push the envelope as well. Let's just continue with the conversation. Honorable Ruku, we saw you. I don't know how it feels sometimes when you look at yourself on TV as well. But you're saying Raila...
He actually didn't mean, he was laughing because he knew he was not saying his true intent.
And he seems to say that in Ethiopia.
Let him go and even if
he can look over the Ethiopia.
He can even go and live in London.
No, we are seriously supporting Raila because of his qualities. He's a true Pan-Africanist who has championed the fight for not only Kenya but for Africa for many years. He's the only guy in the Republic of Kenya who can tell you the history of each and every country in Africa so far, where it started, how they fought for their independence, who became the first president, what were the challenges of that country, how that country has been interacting with other international communities. For instance, during the Cold War, most of African nations were seriously fought by the two Western powers which were fighting then. So many coups were happening in Africa. Raila Odinga has all the history of the nations in Africa, and therefore is one of the best suited guy to be the chairman of African Union Commission come January next year. Since that opportunity has presented itself, I think it's right for any Kenyans not looking at the political issues locally to give support and to ask the president, please send Musalia Mudavadi, let him go to all the capitals in Africa, campaigning for or talking to the head of state, so that come January they can go and vote for Raila Odinga. I understand you have to score about 75% of the vote of all the ends of state. I think we have 52 nations in Africa. So therefore, it is important for Raila to have this opportunity to be the chairman. Of course, when I say about Ethiopia, that's where the seat of African Union is. You'll be sitting there and you'll be moving across Africa to ensure many issues, democracy issues, are properly integrated in the management of government affairs in Africa. We have witnessed a number of coups in Western and Central Africa, especially the Francophone nations. We have very banned pact signed by former French colonial country, where France up to today controls the central bank of those nations, the printing of money of those nations, the right of minerals for those nations from 1958 all the way to now. These are some of the things which need to be looked at, and we will need a serious and powerful chairman of African Union who can be able to talk to the Western powers serious and look to them in the eyes and tell them this business cannot continue. So I think he's one of those who are best suited to be the chairman of African Union, not because of Kenya Kwanza wanting to Raila to get out of the sea. No, I don't think that is the motivation.
Right.
It is the right thing to do. You know,
it appears not to be the motivation, but you can see also we have Wanjigi says that Kalonzo pia anafaa staafu pamoja na Raila. All right, and this is coming under the umbrella of course, this chairmanship quest. All right, let's hear from Onyonka.
I think this story of Raila coming up, him going to the AU, it has created 3 dynamic change developments in our country. One, it has dawned on politicians for the first time that actually a politician with experience and with that kind of name and all that can move away from the activity of the real politic and the noise and the anger and everything that deals with that. I think for me it is a good decision. I think Mzee Raila has served the country stunningly. I don't think anybody with his negatives, which all of us do have negatives, I think his positives are more than his negatives. My sincere opinion is that like many of my colleagues on the other side and us have been going through this emotional journey. We in the ODM side and the KK Alliance are going through the emotions of what is going to happen. He's not going to be there. We have the issue of Kalonzo Musyoka. We have the issue of Martha Karua. All that is running. And of course, for me, I'm gleefully laughing at seeing Musalia on the cartoon holding the picture of Raila close to his heart. I was just laughing seeing my leader and my wonderful friend, Honorable Moses Tangula, who's once my party leader, really vouching for Raila. And you see, I'm juxtaposing this information with the past political disagreements. And in a way, our country is maturing. In a way, the country is telling Kenyans that if you look at where we are as a country, there are certain things we can separate, go on our separate ways, but there is a point where we must converge when it comes to national interest. And I really want to thank my colleagues on the other side. They've really tried, even when many of them have been singing about Raila with sufurias on his head and everything. Some of us have been telling our colleagues that there's a role that Raila has played in this country, and it is enormous responsibility on his part. I think for me, this is more like a reward for him to move ahead. You know, I've worked in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs before. It was a very good move. Somebody from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs must have advised, and I think the President got it. There are people who are traveling outside. The Kenyan ambassador, I'm sure, have been summoned by the President, and they will be engaging the other leaders. I think on the East and Central African zone, Raila is very strong. South Africa will deliver. It will deliver. I think the chance of Raila winning this thing is very, very high. I also want to bring in another angle, and that is political. I think with the elections, the way they've gone over the years, with the responsibility of Raila, the issue of Kofi Annan, and the disagreements we had in 2007 and 8, you come on to the next election, again he lost again, even when the Supreme Court pronounced itself. Then again Raila leaves, the hard position was carrying, and he rolls back and comes back onto negotiating with Uhuru and the Jubilee government, which of course then catapulted William Ruto to becoming president. I think for me, that is one argument. I saw Barack Muluka insinuating that that may look bad, that Raila may look like a warlord-like and everything. The credentials of Raila being a diplomat, Raila being a Pan-Africanist, Raila was in charge of the African infrastructure program, Raila being a true Democrat supporting South Africa during Nelson Mandela's wars, supporting democracy in Africa. Raila playing a major role in this country, in us having a new constitution, which it's a very dynamic and progressive constitution on issues, human rights, gender, and all that stuff. I think it puts him in a position where Africa would want to reward him and say, you've tried your elections 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times and you didn't make it. Whether it was by default or by accident, I think we'll give you the responsibility of moving around Africa and maybe towards your twilight years, then he will gleefully move out of politics. The only people I pity, my colleagues from Luo Nyanza. Many of them have always hung on to Raila to get nominations for ODM, to get their names. Anybody who was moving around Nyanza with Raila, Mzee Raila, and Mzee said it is Dibal Tosha, you always won your elections. Now, my brothers from Luo Nyanza, prepare yourselves.
Work hard.
Raila is gone. Work hard. Make sure you utilize CDF well. Your senators are very, very good and clever. Your governors are doing very well. Please make sure that you now begin to build your names, because Raila is no longer there to cover for you.
So recently we saw Jimmy Wanjigi actually holding court with Raila Odinga, and we thought there's something really working as far as them coming together. They had actually, parted ways during the campaigns as we're heading to 2023, 2022. They were not together. Then we see here saying now Raila and Kalonzo, they should actually be now exiting. I mean, it's a generation exit. So Kalonzo Musyoka as well is up in years. This is what Jim Wanjigi is saying. No, you should vacate. What does it portend, especially for you as well? Will you be suffering from the same scenario that we have Honorable Wakali talking about?
Not really.
The Raila factor and the Kalonzo factor.
I think what Jimmy should be doing is also asking himself, for how long has he been in the political arena?
Yes.
Is he also not a candidate for retirement?
Yes.
Because he has been with everyone in this country.
Yeah.
He has been a political player behind the scenes for so long. Now he thinks that he wants to be in the front. He can ask other people to retire. Let him start with himself. But the truth of the matter is, I think I agree with Senator Onyonga that if you look at Raila's candidature for AU chair, experience-wise, he has what it takes to be the chair. As a country, we have a reason to support his candidature, because Kenya is also a part of Africa, and what's wrong with us being the chair, the country holding that chair position as a country? Thirdly, I'm asking myself, the fact that Raila has gone to Addis, which is only about 2 hours flight, does he lose grip of what is strongholds? And I think the answer is no. Raila has been ambassador, I think, in infrastructure also for AU for quite some time. And he was still traveling a lot within the coordinate. And I don't think anything changed in terms of local politics. So the way that I look at it, some people might be celebrating that by him leaving, a lot could change. But for me, I'm seeing a situation where, even when he's in Addis, people could still consult him for advice on how to proceed with the politics locally. And I can tell you for sure, Luo Nyanza, even though we think a few people might be able to stand on their own, but you still have a lot of influence in terms of local politics. But all said and done, let Raila go to Addis Ababa. That's my wish, and I support his candidature, paving way for my party leader to take over. Because Kalonzo has been prepared for this position since 2007, when he was a presidential candidate. Now, if he was a presidential candidate in 2007 and he was ready to take leadership, 2007, today is 2024. The next election will be 2027, which will be almost like, is it 20 years after he contested for presidency? He can't be more than ready now. He's more than ready to take it up. And that's what we are saying, as from where I sit. This talk about him retiring, he's only 70. He celebrated 70th birthday this December. So I don't know how old is Maina, but he needs to tell us what is this agenda. Because I don't think even if Kalonzo were to retire, I don't think he's next in line. So somebody else will also. Wanjigi, I don't think he will be next in line. So for him, let him just tell us what he wants to do for Kenyans. And Kenyans will make a decision. But we have said the bar, and this is not a secret. If you look at anybody who will be remaining after Raila, assuming Raila will not be able now to play local politics, if you look at who remains after Raila, including Senator Onyonga and myself, and those others, I don't think there's anybody who fits that bill more than Kalonzo. Kalonzo has over 20 members of parliament in parliament. He has over 100 MCs who believe in him. He has Kenyans who respect him a lot. So, even without beating any drums for him, I think he has already beaten the drums for himself. It's a matter of supporting him, and he takes over. And I'm sure there is no other candidate where Kenya Kwanza is trembling when they hear about his candidate than Kalonzo. These guys are praying that Raila remains, because I think they have the dose for. I think they know the dose for Raila. When he's sick, they know which dose to give him. For Kalonzo, they have no idea.
Let me say something about.
It must be a dilemma what is going to happen. But all said and done, Dibal, Azimio will remain united. We are determined as a leadership of Azimio, and we have had our principals saying they are determined to hold on. And they will be consulting the Raila when necessary, but I can assure Azimio followers and supporters like me that we have the right leadership in Azimio, and we will continue pushing hard. This Kenya Kwanza government must make it a one-term government. And they can't do two.
Thank you, Dr. Wakali. Allow me also to say something about this Raila's candidature to the EU. It's actually given the country and the political class what I would call a miscellaneous collection of, it's a mixed bag of stuff. It's a mixed bag of stuff. Why? Because on the one hand, for instance, what the Standard has in its headline, the Raila dilemma. We have heard what my colleagues have said here and what the rest of the Kenyans out there are saying. This candidate is good. Remember, we were here 3 years ago when we were trying to push Amina Mohammed to the same position, and we lost by 3 votes, 28 against 25. Now, when you look at Raila as a candidate for now, he is better placed, more likable, and an Africanist. Being the politician he has been, we all know the history of Raila. I mean, Raila was in politics before I was born. He's still there. So when you look at the prospects of his win, we have got a better position compared to the last time when we were pushing for this thing. And what does it present to us as Kenyans? What does it present to us as Africa? It presents to us as Kenyans a mature democracy. We've just gone through an electioneering period a year ago plus. We had demonstrations cutting across the country led by Raila himself. But 1 year down the line, or actually a few months down the line, here we are on one table saying he fits the bill to represent Africa in this position. And we are all saying he is fit for that office. That is a sign of a very mature democracy in terms of the leadership led by the President, William Ruto, of Kenya Kwanza, who actually was competing with Raila and even fought after the elections were done. And it has given us a platform as Kenya to speak in one voice and say, let's have one of our own to lead this prestigious position in Africa and speak not only for Kenya, but for Africa as a whole. So Raila as a person fits for that office. As to whether or not he's presenting an opportunity to his competitors, I would for a moment ask myself the question without listening to Honorable Makali, who has, you know, he's pitched for his person so passionately that I'm wondering, kumbe, while we are saying Raila is the best candidate because of his history and the position that he's held for a long time,
there is a looming opportunity.
There is a looming opportunity for somebody and telling these people, please let Raila go so that this space is available. And I don't envy the ODM colleagues across. I don't envy, of course, Kalonzo and his brigade as well.
But don't you suffer from the same syndrome as well as Makali, that you are happy that now the opposition it's been a headache for a while.
We've beaten Raila severally, that's number one. Number two, Kalonzo is not in our equation at all. He's not someone whom we can sit back and say he can compete with William Ruto 2027. Let's be honest to ourselves.
Makali, you want to respond to that?
Let's be honest to ourselves.
house. And so it is an opportunity for Makali and his team. I'm happy for you. If that happens, at least your person will be in the ballot as a presidential
Surely,
candidate.
Makali, you can't just
As to
take that
whether
lying
or
down
not-
that
No, but
Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka cannot really pass muster to compete with.
So let me add the same so that Magari can have a basket to respond. You know, it is true that probably the most senior politician who will take over after Raila Odinga is Kalonzo Musyoka. And when we look at the history of Kalonzo Musyoka, he's a man who, no doubt, who has earned his respect over the years through his service to the people of the Republic of Kenya. But there are two things which are very consistent with Kalonzo Musyoka. One is consistency in messing up any good political plan. From the time when he was the vice president of the then late Moi, to the time he was the deputy president or vice president of Mwai Kibaki. All the way to the time trying to organize how they can take over a government with Raila Odinga. Every single time, an opportunity presented to himself, a proper opportunity, where Kalonzo could have been, propelled to be the head of state of the Republic of Kenya, but he misses in taking charge, in making firm decisions. Is extremely indecisive when it comes to decision making, and more so political decision making. So I don't think he'll be in any position when it comes to 2027 politics to be able to put a proper political machinery to take over this country. It is be extremely impossible. And if Kalonzo Musyoka is presented with an opportunity by Kenya Kwanza government or administration or political grouping, an opportunity to have a coalition, to be in the next government, that opportunity will be taken by Kalonzo Musyoka early in the morning.
You should have. He has not taken up to now. What should you do at that time?
It's because Raila is in charge. And actually,
why has he not taken it now? He's a whole block of his side.
I could say,
respond.
Can I say something? I want him to defend his party leader.
No,
at least
I think to say something.
I want him. Can I?
Yeah, please, I allow.
Yes, thank you. Because I feel what I'll say, I want him to conclude.
Yes.
I want to tell my two brothers
here.
let me say this. I want to say this to my friend, my senator, man I highly regard and love, and my brother. On a order of merit.
Yes.
In the Kenyan political experience right now and structure that is going on, nobody takes number one after Raila, other than Kalonzo Musyoka. If you ask me, what is going to determine whether the presidency of William Ruto will go on to year number 10 or whether he's going to be a one-term president is two things. Whether he is going to perform successfully in making sure that the economic growth is there, the debt is managed, and Kenyans are happy with his performance as president.
That's true.
And whether William Ruto is going to continue with his noise about the hustler nation and that kind of thing. If you find that there are Kenyans who will feel that they needed somebody who's much calmer, more quieter, more organized, and less noisier, they would take Kalonzo, number one. Number two, the mistakes Kalonzo has made are the typical mistakes that in a growing a growing country, and a country that is struggling with its democracy, because for me, I've lived it. How Kalonzo became the vice president of Kibaki, we really hated him. But hadn't he become the vice president, Kenya was going to war. So you should never judge Kalonzo for having joined Kibaki. And you know I was against him, but we saw the argument about it. Do you have Kalonzo being there and acting as a fortress for Kibaki to negotiate with us? Or do you take Kalonzo and he comes to our side and then we go blazing guns and we collapse the government which had already been elected? So even when you may want to criticize him as having shown that he was a weak leader, it took a lot of energy and strength for Kalonzo to have accepted the role he has played, including the role of being Raila's deputy, even when we actually insulted and humiliated him constantly. So there are people who consider Kalonzo to be a person of integrity. He's been Minister for Foreign Affairs, Minister for Education, Minister for Local Government, has been a Vice President of the Republic of Kenya, Minister of Foreign Affairs. He's been in government for the last 35 years. That is enough experience for him to run this country. And if you look at the record of Kalonzo, he is the least corrupt of most of us politicians in this Republic of Kenya. If Kenyans were to consider that to be an issue, he would be a very good candidate against William Ruto.
Which party are you in again?
Of course, ODM.
Not Wiper.
You know the bar.
He's in ODM. He's confirmed.
I'm in KK. I'm in the KK alliance.
But he joined us.
I'm in the KK alliance.
And you know the bar.
I'm in the KK
alliance. We always say that the truth does not miss the way. You know, when you talk about facts, you might want to change them, but they can never change. The truth of the matter is, following up on what Senator Onyonga said, in terms of experience, Kalonzo, you can't really doubt him. He has what it takes to be the president of this country. The only thing which now Rugu is saying, you know, I always get not confused when I hear somebody say Kalonzo is indecisive. Let's just look at Kalonzo as a person. For the last 3 elections, Kalonzo has decided to support Raila Molo as the presidential candidate. The first 2, Kalonzo was running mate. The third time he wasn't. He was Mother Karua took over. Despite that, he convinced us who believe in him, against our wish, that it's better we support Raila for now because of a number of factors. And he was able to convince us. And as a result of that, we convinced the community. Truth be said, I think other than Raila, Kalonzo is the only other politician who has a block, political block he can count on, which is fully behind him. Despite the so-called weaknesses in quotes you guys see, that Kalonzo has what it takes to be. And that's what we are saying about. Look at Kibaki, when Kibaki took over this country. What was his health status? Kibaki was quite sickly. You know that very well.
Then there was the age question.
And there was also the age question. Then Kalonzo comes on board, works with Kibaki, and in 5 years, everybody was talking about the economic growth of this country. We were all praising that team. Imagine if you are deputizing somebody who heard the voice as challenges. In reality, who was leading this country at that time? This is the truth. We like it or not. So, and every Kenyan, even in the streets today, if you ask them, the best time in terms of economic growth Kenya has experienced,
Kibaki's time.
It's Kibaki time. So who was working the Kibaki?
Kalonzo.
So now it's like when Ruto says, you know, Uhuru messed up this economy, and he was deputizing Uhuru. How do you separate those two? So it makes sense to say the time of Kalonzo and Kibaki, because that was the presidency, and the presidency these days is not like the old one where we would say first and kick off. So to me, the way I look at it, if Kenyans want to be in safe hands, and I always say I don't really, at my level, I cannot be a sycophant. I always say as it is. If Kenyans want to get it right this time, I like what Senator Onyonga said. You know, President Ruto is very good at talking, and he's now talking very well. If it doesn't change the talking to action, so that Kenyans see results of the talking in terms of better economy,
yes,
better hospitals and all that, I can tell you for sure, after 5 years, Kenyans will be kicking him out of government. And Ruku and Senator Singei, you better prepare for Kalonzo to be your president. You better start pledging loyalty to me.
Just two issues.
So that I'm giving soft landing.
Two issues. One, there's something which you mentioned, which is almost we are forgetting about the retreat in Naivasha.
Yes.
That the ministers and the Kenya Kwanza members of parliament.
Sigi was to say yes.
Yes, were in Naivasha, and you're asking why would the ministers be only meet with one group of members of parliament and not the whole house? This is not. It was not. A parliamentary function. This is a Kenya Kwanza coalition retreat, where the president and his team, the members of parliament were elected, the senators and the executive, the cabinet, because we have a manifesto to fulfill to Kenyans. We have to come together and interrogate ourselves, interrogate how far the progress which we have made, the decisions which we are taking as a government, and members of parliament were asking difficult questions, not only to the president but also to the cabinet secretaries, so that they can be able to answer, so that also we can advise the cabinet secretaries, so that also they can tell us the problem they have with us as members of parliament. For instance, a minister can move from one committee to the other for 5 days. When will you be able to perform your duty as a cabinet secretary? If you are moving from the budget committee today, tomorrow you are in justice and legal affairs committee, the following day you are in another committee, and you have to appear to these committees. If you don't, you are summoned because committees have quasi-judicial powers, which are the powers of the same as High Court. So we were trying to put our house in order, which is the right thing to do. So that we may not be, when they come to the parliament, to the plenary, questions are asked by both members of Kenya Kwanza Coalition and the minority side, asking questions pertaining the Republic of Kenya. That does not mean when we go to Naivasha and come back to parliament, we will not be asking this, questions pertaining the Republic of Kenya. It's the people who took us to the house. So I think it's the right thing to do. We have never seen this in the past where the president sit down with his ministers regularly. This is the second retreat, so that we can arrange the State Department properly. Last week on Thursday, Mbadi forwarded a tabled report, audit report of 2020-2021. And this report is with full, how much money has been lost, how accounting procedures were not followed, how many executive orders were creating some organizations which are not supported by any act of parliament. And that 2020-2012, presidency is very powerful institution in any government, in any country, very powerful institution. A president has a lot of powers. When my brother is saying Kibaki and Kalonzo, Kibaki was the president, and the president is very powerful. Remember, then Kibaki had powers to sack Kalonzo Musyoka. It is now that the president cannot be able to sack his deputy. Why Kibaki? If you go to the ODM people, they will say they performed very well because it was Mwai Kibaki and Raila Odinga as the prime cabinet secretary. And they will say it is because Raila Odinga is an engineer. He knows how to perform, to plan things properly. So I don't know whether it's Kalonzo Musyoka.
Who was the vice president?
Or is it?
Who was the vice president? Just say it. Who was the vice president?
I don't know whether Kalonzo Musyoka.
The principal deputy for the president.
Or Raila Odinga. So what I'm saying, that's one thing about the retreat.
But also, still on the retreat, I just want to ask, just in case that when you're discussing, especially we have cabinets who are coming up with some bills, like the privatization bill.
Yes.
And we have conversation where we don't have the opposition and such issues of bills also they are floated, because I know we've discussed these things. Where will we get the input of the opposition to countermand some of the issues that we feel maybe the executive is trying to steamroll a section? And you're talking about the parliamentary capture right now, that this is sort of mobilizing, because we saw there was a mobilization of the housing levy, and we've not even discussed how the debate was on the floor of House. You were there during the National Assembly, because all of them, they are whipped in Naivasha
actually
to come, and we saw how many legislators voted. 149, right? Out of
141.
140?
141.
And 149 were missing. Right? They were just within the precincts of Parliament. So why was this really happening? And we've seen most of them showing where they stand as far as the housing bill is concerned. Either they're opposing or they're not opposing. But this particular day, some are elected to be not in the chambers to vote.
Maybe I can say that Sgay comes in, maybe respond to my issues, because he was there also.
Just briefly, because we should be giving our winding
two very quick
remarks,
issues, Dibal. One of them, I have no problem with the Kenya Kwanza meeting, even MPs and ministers. I have only problem with the two issues. One issue is, I have a problem when they meet in Naivasha, and from there they craft the legislative agenda of this country, and they bring to the House, and they don't allow any alternative voice.
That's what we were saying.
And the other thing I have a problem with, for example, you have seen just, I think it was the thing you brought here, CS Nakumicha, where she was saying, tomorrow we'll be discussing the regulations, on Wednesday they will be passed, on 1st March they will be paid. So you can see the agenda of the House is no longer now within the House. It is outside the House. And if you look at the Constitution, it's very clear. The Parliament of Kenya will set their own calendar, and through the House Business Committee, they will set the agenda of the day. So the question is, have we now shifted Parliament
and it is
to the executive? If Sgay can help us understand that.
Yes,
a situation where the President says, by Tuesday you'll have this law passed. And it's like we have no choice, the law is passed. So where is the role of Parliament in all this arrangement? Maybe Sgay can help us.
Thank you. And if you were to discuss these legislative or policy issues,
yes,
should it not be in the chambers of the House? If it's a retreat, maybe get together, I don't know. But I think critical issues that should be discussed within the houses, both houses, we're talking about the Senate and the National Assembly, should be preserved for those houses and the Assembly, not a retreat in Naivasha.
Thanks, Dibal. Before I respond to that, I want to wish the very best to the desire by the Honorable Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka and team to the next level of leadership in the event that the Right Honorable Raila Odinga exits the scene, to give him the platform. We definitely would be very happy to have him as our competitor in the next general election. And believe you me, Dibal, and my good friend Dr. Makali, it's gonna be an interesting race between the two candidates.
You've just indicated it's gonna be a walkover.
That's what I'm saying. God will be very happy. We'll be very happy to have him. It will be easy for us.
Be playing the opposition, will be playing the government.
Now, Hillary is changing his statement.
I'm not changing the statement.
That's why we keep telling him, please sometimes be good to us.
I'm saying, I'm wishing him well, because I would be very happy to have him also as a competitor. You know, when you are wishing and looking forward to a competitor that you are going to have the best bite out of it, let that come forward. And otherwise, I know, of course, Kalonzo is a lawyer. I'm a lawyer by profession. I know him as a colleague, senior colleague for that matter. He's one of those people who, over time, you know as a professional now of politics. He's a fine gentleman. But the political class and the political wing, he will play a different number. This other team will play the best number. Wish well. Now, back to this conversation about the PG, the parliamentary group. Honorable has given us at least a historical background of what transpired in Naivasha. And just to expand on it, this was a parliamentary group of Kenya Kwanza. And it is true, when you ask the reason, why we went out there with the executive. Remember, we are implementing a manifesto that was shared with Kenyans in the run-up to the elections of 2022. That manifesto was informed by the desire to do certain things for the people of Kenya. Among those things, some have been done, some are in the pipeline, some are yet to be done. What then this parliamentary group was doing was to evaluate ourselves. What did we tell Kenyans? What have we done? What are we planning to do in this financial year? How about the next year? What are the challenges that we have experienced over this short period of time for us not to have delivered on some of those promises, and what is it that we've done for those which we have delivered? It was such a very objective PG. It informed a number of things, including on areas where we have not been able to deliver. We were able to see what were the bottlenecks, particularly in areas on legislation. And so remember, this is the government that is of the day. I sit in the Senate Business Committee. When my colleague here, Dr. Makali, says it's normally a preserve of the House Business Committee to plan the program, the calendar, and what the House is supposed to do. It is actually true. But of interest is the fact that the ruling coalition, of course, pushes its agenda. When we sit every Tuesday, with the Senate Business Committee to approve of the order paper for that week and the subsequent week. And in all this, there is no day that we have sidelined a bill that is financed by Senator Onyonga because he comes from the opposition. No. All bills, all businesses doesn't take preference because who brings them forward. But when it comes to those which are from the ruling coalition, from the government, if I have a bill that I'm sponsoring, and my colleague, majority leader, has a bill that is also sponsoring, his will take precedence over mine merely because he's pushing the agenda and is the majority leader. But then it will not be pushing out from the order paper the bill from Senator Onyonga because he's coming from the opposition. So all businesses are treated where when in the House Business Committee equally. What then happened in Naivasha has got every goodwill to push the agenda of the House to make sure that if we promised Kenyans we will deliver on the housing bill, what is it that has stopped us from doing it? If we promise Kenyans we will do this infrastructure, we will reform the health sector, what are the challenges that we have experienced? And it didn't take away also the mandate of the House in terms of planning its agenda and programs. It didn't take away the mandate of the committees to summon the cabinet secretaries and ask them to answer those questions, because that is provided for in the Constitution and the standing orders. And remember, Kenya Kwanza government is the one that has said we push these people because they're answerable to Kenyans. Thank you very much.
Let's just give our closing remarks, because also we're pinched for time. I think we want to
Thank you.
begin with you, Honorable Senator Onyonga.
We disagree with the issue of the housing levy, not because it's a bad idea. It is simply because we don't have clarity on policy and clarity on administering the whole exercise process, the financials. That is our worry. I believe that my colleagues in the KK Alliance, if that housing project succeeds, you will benefit highly, not personally, but politically. Sure. But also we will continue criticizing you so that you do it correctly. We will also benefit because Kenyans will know we are the ones who will make you do it better than you are explaining to us right now. To me, the scenario you have, Mzee Raila going abroad and going out of the country so that he represents us as the chairman of AU, fantastic idea. The only request I would like to make to him is that as he's trying to figure out on who he is going to give the mantle to be in charge of being the Luo kingpin and that kind of stuff, I hope he will use democracy. Even when we are picking who's going to take over from him, I hope that he will allow us, because I'm a member of ODM, and many of our colleagues and our brothers from the other side, as we are in this Azimio coalition, I would wish that we are given the opportunity to give it the best, choose using democracy, so that we get good leaders who can continue. So it's not Mbadi? Mbadi, I love Mbadi, but I'm saying I want to see all the candidates who are going to run.
All right.
President William Ruto has brought back the economy to right trajectory. We support him. And we are going to see within the course of this year where the universal health care is going to be implemented, that every Kenyan will be able to go to hospital for free and get treated once the regulations on social health care or universal health care are done with. They are at the public participation level at the moment, and soon we will be able to see healthcare system changing in the Republic of Kenya, courtesy of William Samoei Ruto. We have seen the housing program is all about creation of jobs in many sectors within the economy, whether it is in manufacturing of cement, timber business, whether it is construction materials such as stones or sand or nails, or tiles or roof, iron sheet, is going to create jobs in an enormous way across the sector, all sectors of the economy in the Republic of Kenya, and this will fertilize our economy, create jobs for the youth, for professionals, and that is the right way to go.
Thank you, Honorable Ruku. Right, let's hear from Dr. Makali.
I'll be very brief. I would have wanted, I wish we had time to discuss the issue of Okoa Uchumi, what they were saying. Kenyans note that we have borrowed, we have a new Eurobond, which was taken to pay the 2014 Eurobond. The 2014 Eurobond interest rate was 6.8%. The current one we have taken at 10.2%. That is bad economics.
Bad economics.
We are kicking the ball, and it will still catch up with it.
So we're kicking the can down the road. We'll catch up with it. I think also that's the interest rate that you're raising Ambridge with the 14 that the control of budget was setting, right, Honorable Ruko?
Which is not true.
Which is not true, as you say.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Briefly,
As we close, we are headed the right direction as Kenya under the leadership of the President William Ruto. All we are asking is let's hold hands together because Kenya is bigger. As regards the affordable housing project and the bill that is now getting into the Senate in the course of this week, we have an opening for amendments. A number of proposed amendments in the National Assembly were adopted. We definitely will be doing the same at the Senate so that we answer to those questions that my colleague and my colleagues across the board have been asking, so that this housing bill becomes a reality to get Kenyans to the next level in terms of getting houses and the rest of the benefits that comes with it. Thank you.
There goes the bell. Thank you very much, guys. I really do appreciate. Thank you for your sentiments. I think we're punched for time, but I really do appreciate always a treat having you